أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على خاتم النبيين وسيد المرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما على الإمام المنتظر وحجة الله الثانية عشر ابن العسكري المنتظر، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم القرآن الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد من الله على المؤمنين أن بعث فيهم رسولا من أنفسهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. صلوات. ونصب إجازة. First of all, allow me to offer my sincere condolences to all of you on this extremely hazeen occasion of the Shahadat of the Holy Prophet Salawatullahi Wassalamuhu alayhi. And it is but pertinent that in this munasabat that we are here, the occasion that we are here, we need to discuss, we need to speak about something related to the Prophet, something related to his core message with regards to and for which he had come down. And with this verse of the Quran mentions, وَلَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. He has done a minnat. Allah has placed an obligation. Allah has placed an obligation on our heads, على المؤمنين أن بعث فيهم رسولا, that he has sent to us a Rasul min anfusihim, from amongst us. And his job is يتلو عليهم آياته. He recites, introduces the ayat, the signs of God. ويزكيهم. He purifies us. ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة. And he teaches them the kitab, the book of God, and hikmah. وَإِن كَانُوا مِن قِبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Whereas before the arrival of this Prophet, the people were in absolute manifest ضلال. Dalal means deviation, gumrahi. You see, when I'm seeing faces over here that I know have been visiting, when we come back from a trip abroad and we fly to Heathrow, wherever we're coming, at the airport you will find a placard, a notice, a little introduction, and then we go into the discussion that I wish to present before you. You see a placard which says that we are here to serve you, we will respect you, and we expect the same from you. You need to respect our staff. And this sort of placard, this sort of notice you will find in every public service places, whether you go to surgeries, GP surgeries, whether you go to council office, whether you even pick up the phone and call the council. They say, we are here to serve you, but we will expect respect and courtesy from you. And the amazing thing is that wherever we go to these places, I'm leading you to a certain point. And wherever we read these things, we go out of our way to become more civil, more courteous. So if you're at the immigration, you're not at the e-passport checkout gate, you'll start to talk to the immigration officers. You'll pass a comment, a joke here, a laugh there. How are you? How was your day? We go out of our way to become more civil, more courteous. You go to the surgery at the reception. Hello, ma'am. How are you doing? We go out of our way. But the ajib thing is over here that basically the government is saying that these are our representatives in various departments. Make sure you behave well with them, you respect them, you be courteous to them. And we do it. We go out of our way to do it. But the amazing thing is that the government's representatives, we go out of our way to please and be courteous to them, be civil to them. But the ajab thing is that the representative of our imams, we're carrying a gun in our hands to shoot them at every opportunity. And I mean the Maraji. They are the representatives of the imam. The government's representatives, we will bow our head before them. But when it comes to the representatives of the imam and the anbiya and the nabi, and you as so beautifully heard Maulana Sahib reciting, but when it comes to them, we are carrying a gun in our hand. Forget about getting a mistake. We concoct mistakes to shoot at. You see what is happening today? It's become a fad. And that's why there's this burn in the heart. And that's why tonight's lecture and tomorrow's majlis. These Maraji are the representatives of the Imam. And it is our duty to respect them. It is our duty to look after them. Just as we look after and be civil to the courtesies of the people of this country and the government. But when it comes to the Maraji, we have a problem. And we feel that we've got a right to comment on them, to talk about them, to criticize them, to take our gun and shoot at them. Why? Because they're not here to defend themselves. Because they're not here to talk and defend about themselves, so we can talk whatever we want with them. And we have no fear of any reprisals. But there's a problem over here. These Maraji are the representatives of this Prophet that we just so eloquently heard. And these Maraji need to be looked forward to. But what do we do? At every opportunity, we want to go against. And we keep hearing this concept that, oh, what is these old people doing in Najaf and Qum? We need a marja. And this is the basis for tonight's lecture and tomorrow's majlis. And hence I'm taking a few more minutes of your time. We need a marja in the West. We need a person who understands us over here. We need somebody, and we've got people over here who can take up the mantleship of the marja'iyat of the Western world in the West. We've got people who've got knowledge. But is ilm the only criteria for becoming a marja? Is ilm the only criteria? If ilm was the only criteria, I'm going to something deep and profound. This is an introduction. If ilm was the only criteria, then Qarun would have been the marja at that time. Because Qarun was an expert in chemistry. He would have been an expert. He would have been the marja at the time. But Qarun was never the marja. You saw the consequence of Qarun. Ilm is not the only criteria. There are something that play different roles in a person becoming a marja. You need taqwa, the fear of God, the fear of not hurting God. Zuhud comes into play, abstemiousness in this world. Spirituality and ruhaniyat comes into play. And in tonight's lecture and tomorrow's lecture, I'm going to present before you certain things. I'm not here to influence you. I'm not here to tell you how to think. I'm not here to tell you what path to adopt. I'm here to give you the tools for you to decide what is right and what is wrong. Nobody is over here trying to narcotize you. But I have the right to give you the tools that you can use to identify who is a real marja and who is a pseudo marja. People come and start shooting left, right, and center. So today and tonight's lecture, I'm going to pick up something to tell you. When I talk about a marja having ilm and people saying, oh, knowledge is there in this country, in the West. But knowledge is not the only criteria. There's certain thing called taqwa. I'll give you one example. At the end of tonight's lecture, at the end of tomorrow's lecture, I leave you with this one question. Do we have individuals of this category in this country or in the West that people say, we've got people in the West that can become a marja. We don't need to go to those old people in Najaf and Qum. You answer, I'm not going to answer. I'm just going to lay facts before you. So when we talk about this marja'iyat, we talk about the marja, in addition to ilm, it is a holistic personality then who assumes the charge of the Shiite world. Taqwa is one thing, one incident, and then we can find out. You pick up these incidents and see if we have people who match up to this criteria in the West, then we sit and we talk. About Ayatollah Marhum, Ayatollah Bahjat, understand, look, this is how the marja needs to be. And then you tell me if we got people of this category in the West that we claim marja'iyat in the West, not to go to the seminaries of Qum and Mashhad and Najaf. One day, one of the students of Ayatollah Bahjat is narrating very quickly. He's saying one day, one of these Ruhaniyin in the vicinity, in the neighborhood of Ayatollah Bahjat happened to go on a travel. So his wife was alone in the house. Now, you know what happens Shebe Jumama, Thursday. What happens in our houses? Paidi rande, Fatio che, please distribute kariyo. Don't we do that? So we take up the car, we go to distribute it to people. Fatio che, Thursday che, marhumin mate, we need to give it out. Doesn't mean the Maraji are absent from this sort of thing. The wife said, look, that person's husband is not there. I've prepared something, can you please give it to at least, no, it looks good that the husband is not there. So the dish was given. Ayatollah Bahjat himself comes out. But the student is saying, in addition to him coming, understand where we are heading to. In addition to him coming out, he takes his young son with him, who's now baligh, 12, 13. So to take the food, they go to the road, the kucha, the lane that goes into the house of this individual who's traveled. The wife is over here. Ayatollah Bahjat stands at the start, at the commencement of that road, and he tells his son, you go and give it. So the son goes, young, 10, 11, 12, goes, knocks at the door, the wife opens, gives it. The student says, this was a mystery to me. Why is it that Pote Ayatollah Bahjat, why did he not move forward? Why did he not go to the house? I'm telling you this taqwa, yeah? He says, why did he not go? What was so difficult for him to go to the door, knock at the door, and give the food to the lady? He says, I couldn't understand till when I was doing the masail of fiqh, I realized one question. Once as I was studying, this question came up, and then immediately it struck me that this man named Ayatollah Bahjat was so responsible. And the mas'ala is this, that if a person has traveled, leaving behind his wife in the house, it is makruh for a na-mahram to go to the house and visit that lady in the absence of the husband. This Ayatollah Bahjat, now he's going to give food. He is a mujtahid. He is a marja. Nobody would have even thought bad ideas about him. But the very fact that makruh means God does not want. If God does not want, Bahjat will not do it. He will send his nabalik son with the food to the house of the lady so that he doesn't have to go to the house of the lady and commit something that is makruh. This is one part of marja'iyat. Zuhud, staying away from the luxuries of this world. Millions of dollars come into that old man, people say, in Najaf. Millions of dollars into the coffers of Ayatollah Sistani in Wujuhad al-Shar'i. But you go to his house and you see what kind of a house it is. You ask him, does he own this house? And he will answer. You ask the people what kind of house it is. We've gone, we've sat, we've talked to him. We know how he lives. This is called zuhud. All of this together make a package. And today I'm going to pick up one aspect of a marja. Tomorrow another aspect. To tell you, to show to you how uncannily they followed the seerat of the Anbiya. And before having said that, I will explain to you one marja that I will pick up today and tomorrow. Somebody who, there can be no controversy about the marja'iyat of that individual. There can be no controversy or no two thoughts that he is the mujaddid of this era. The late Ayatollah Khomeini. Listen to where we are going, and then we will take this forward. This was just a preamble. The Madlu starts now. We will pick up certain aspects about the life of Imam Khomeini. We will compare it to the past prophets. Then you would tell me, if you find anybody in the West that can cater to this sort of a yardstick, bring him before. Then we discuss. Marfiyat from the West, yeah? In the Quran mentions the fundamentals, the fundamental crux of all the Anbiya. It says the fundamental aim was to invite the people towards Islam. And look at Surah Araf. Surah Araf goes on talking about it. Talks about various Anbiya. Talks about Shaikh, talks about Saleh, talks about Hud, talks about X, talks about Y. Anbiya, and all of them, when he's talking, who? Allah, when he's talking about how they do tabligh, he keeps repeating one sentence. Waqal, and he said. At times it is about Nuh, at times Saleh, at times Hud, at times Ibrahim, at times X, at times Y, at times Z. It says every time when they go to the people, to the community, they would say, Qal, Ya qawmi i'budullah ma lakum min ilahin ghayruhu. Oh my people, I invite you towards Allah, towards God. There is no God. I invite you towards the worship of this God, towards Allah, for there is no ilah, there is no Lord except this. So basically, the fundamental call of all the Anbiya was to call people towards the worship of God. And this is what the Holy Prophet started with, isn't it? قُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ تُفْلِحُوا. But there was one more seerah of the Anbiya. This is calling the general people towards the belief of Allah, towards Islam, towards Iman, or whatever the religion. Inna deena indallahi al-Islam. Whatever was the furu'at of deen was different. Usul of the deen was always the same. Islam, Taslim, before Allah. But in addition to that, they had one more concept, one more seerat. And that seerat was that these Anbiya, in addition to calling the general people towards God, towards the worship of God, they had this particular unique ability and the responsibility to call the leaders of communities towards God. Not the general people, all, but in addition to that, they would have special attention to call the leaders of communities, governors, rulers of people who were not Muslims to come towards Islam, to come towards a religion. And this took place in the past prophets, it took place at the time of the Holy Prophet. How many of us know? We all know. The Prophet used to call people, the rulers of various superpowers, into Islam. He sent letters to Khusro Parvez, come to Islam. Khusro Parvez, the Roman emperor. He sent letters to Heraclius, the Roman emperor, come to Islam. He sent letter to the Abyssinian monarch, Negus, come to Islam. The reactions are different, that's not a concern. We don't want to go into the reactions right now with these people. But the Prophet did write to them. And by the way, all these letters, these treaties, the covenants that the Prophet had done, it's all collected on. It's not random, it's not ad hoc, it's not random. We've got a collection of all of these. Ayatollah Ahmadiyya Mianji has written a book, Makatib Rasul, in which all these letters are compiled. 255 letters. Although we don't have 255, we got only 229. We know he had written 255 letters, covenants, peace treaties, agreements with various tribes. All of them are recorded. We have record of 255, we have 229, Ayatollah Mianji, Makatib Rasul. He also has written another book, Makatib al-A'imma, the letters written by A'imma. Again, that's not our point of this. So he's writing them, he's calling them. But I want to take you to a particular segment of history and compare certain things that took place in that era with things that took place with this marja. See this marja, his actions, and then bring somebody in the West that you feel can match up. Then we cut our eyes away from Najaf. Then we cut our eyes away from Qom. Then we look over here. In the tradition, we've got one particular characteristic given by the prophets. And that tradition, with numerous changes in words, with numerous forms, it says, يَكُونُ فِي هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ كُلُّ مَا كَانَ فِي بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل. It says, يَكُونُ فِي هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ, there will take place instances, events with this ummah, مَا كُلَّ مَا كَانَ فِي بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل, everything that took place at the time of Bani Israel. Time of Musa, the time of Isa, and the Anbiya of Bani Israel. And the tradition goes on to say, حَذْوَ النَّعَ النَّعَ الْبِنَّعَ. All the events that will take place in this community will be a complete replica. A na'al bin na'al. Na'al means a footwear. A na'al bin na'al means a footwear upon footwear, a footprint upon footprint. If you have somebody walking in sand, he leaves behind footprint. If you were to put your foot into the footprints that have already been there, it means you're traveling the course of that individual. And na'al bin na'al, footprint upon footprint. The tradition says events that are taken place in the time of Bani Israel will be repeated in this ummah. يكون في هذه الأمة كل ما كان في بني إسرائيل نعل بالنعل. So I want to go back to the past community, pick up an incident, and pick up an incident in this era and then compare it. And then we know, then we are into business to find out these representatives of the Holy Prophet who gave his life for Islam. And this is our belief. People might say wafat. Wafat means a natural death. This is not a natural death. This is shahadat. Numerous traditions, we don't want to go into the details. My personal view, it's a shahadat. People might want to believe, don't want to believe, that's a different issue. We go to the Quran to pick up one instance, because now the tribe of the Qawm of Bani Israel, the era of Bani Israel, very similar to the era of the Holy Prophet, we need to compare. You noticed one seerah of the Anbiya was to invite the leaders to come towards the religion of God. The Quran mentions one such instance about a representative of God in the form of a Nabi calling a leader to come towards God. The incident of Nabi Musa alayhi salatu wasalam calling Fir'aun towards Islam. Everybody knows about this. And then I want to compare this calling of Nabi Musa to Fir'aun to come towards Islam with an act done by Ayatollah Khomeini in his lifetime when he invited Mikhail Gorbachev to come towards Islam. Gorbachev passed away end of August last month. And I want to tell you something. Pay attention to it. And then say, we have somebody of this caliber in the West, then we are game. What happened at the time when Hazrat Musa was there? I will give you a little brief account of the scenario and then the characteristics, and then you see. In those times, Fir'aun was subjugating Bani Israel. They were like his slaves. Everything, subjugation that you could think of, persecution, tyranny, oppression, dhulm, was being persecuted upon them. People were not free. Nabi Musa comes to Fir'aun and says, Fir'aun, the people of God are the amanat of God. You have to let them go free. You cannot subjugate them the way you're subjugating. These Bani Israel need to go free. Bani Israel has to go free. You know what was the response of Fir'aun at that time? He says, Musa, what are you talking about these things? What are you talking? قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْيَوْمَ مَنِ اسْتَعْلَى. Today, the successful one is one who's got the power in their hand. The same thing that was said by Fir'aun and the response, same thing that was said by Nabi Musa and the response elicited by Fir'aun was something that you see in the time of Imam Khomeini. Imam Khomeini tells the Shah and tells the powers supporting the Shah, let the people of Iran be free. Don't subjugate them. Don't plunder our natural resources. Don't plunder the resources of Iran. There was a time at that time, go and read history. Iran was so dependent on certain countries that even eggs were being imported from that country to eat. Imam Khomeini says, what nonsense is this? We've got the ability. You have subjugated the people. You have stolen the resources. You're selling the natural and the material resources of the country to somebody else. You need to let them go free. What was the response that came from the powers that be? The same response given by Musa, by Fir'aun. We are the superpower. You do as I tell you. You cannot violate our ruling. And then what did Fir'aun do? Quran says, يُذَبِّحُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ, killing the people and the children. What happened in today's time? You don't follow our dictates. We will start launching ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles. We've got drone technology. Now they will kill and our people will not get killed. Same thing, يُذَبِّحُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ. What happened in the wars? 500,000 children dead. And then people saying, oh, it was worth it. Same thing, يُذَبِّحُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ. The same message of Musa over there is resonating here with message of Ayatollah Khomeini. I'm not saying Musa is similar to Khomeini. I'm not saying Khomeini is Ma'asum. Khomeini is not Ma'asum. Khomeini is not the divine representative. Khomeini is not one who's come directly from God. But he has come as a representative of the representative of God. Don't get me wrong. Don't start WhatsApp messages. The Shaikh is saying Imam Khomeini is now like Musa. I'm not saying he's like Musa. I'm comparing the person wanting to do and follow the seerat of an Anbiya to see how close and uncanny his following in seerat is. So let's start off. In this entire mission, which starts off with Quran telling Nabi Musa, اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى. Your mission starts now, Musa. You need to go to Fir'aun, innahu taga. He's done tughyan. He's done recalcitrant. He's done stubborn. He's violated us. He's standing in opposition to us. And he was standing in opposition. Somebody tells us, people, Ana Rabbukumul A'la means what? I'm your greatest Lord. There is no Allah in play. Ana Rabbukumul A'la. You may have little gods, but the greatest Lord is Ana Rabbukumul A'la. Fir'aun says. Just go to him. Innahu taga. He's now crossed limits. But in this entire mission, Allah is now guiding Musa how to go about. There are 5 or 6 characteristics. Listen to this very quickly. Then we go to the invitation of Ayatollah Khomeini to Mikhail Gorbachev. And then see, when you see a man of God, a mujaddid, a person who comes once in 100 years to rejuvenate the religion, find me a man like this and I'm game to find it marjaya. First of all, Allah tells, and now this is what I'm telling you, is all between, in Surah Taha, between verses number 42 to 65. It could be 40 to 65. Let's take round figure. Between Surah Taha, verse number 40 to verse number 65, 27 verse, inclusive of 40 and 65. First characteristic, Allah actually tells Musa how you need to do tabligh. Be very quickly now, we're running short of time. He says, Ya Musa, when you're going, اذهب أنت بأخوك بآيات. Go to Fir'aun with my miracles. And you know, Musa was given 9 miracles. Musa was given 9 miracles by God. We know only one, the staff. He had Yadu Bayda, the illuminated hand. There was blood, there was frog, there was this, there was that. We don't want to go into those 9 miracles. He says, go to them. اذهب أنت وأخوك. You and your brother Harun, go to him with my ayat, with my mu'jizat. Talk to them. وَلَا تَنَيَا فِي الذِّكْرِ. But make sure when you're presenting, you're talking, you're inviting them, you're doing da'wah. See? Other sects say da'wah. We say tabligh. There's no difference between them. There are 2 sides of the coin. Da'wah means to invite. Tabligh means to pass the message. When you pass the message, you invite the people. You will not be able to invite the people till you pass the message of Islam. So tabligh and da'wah may be 2 different words, but they're 2 sides of a coin. Other people say da'wah, we say tabligh. Means the same thing. This invitation, Quran says, when you're going, go with my ayat, with my miracles. وَلَا تَنَيَا فِي الذِّكْرِ. Do not be lax. Do not be lethargic when you speak to him. Very quickly, then we will compare it. Go, be firm, be active, be proactive. Don't be slack in your talking to them. 1. Second, Quran says, when you talk to them in a nice manner. وَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Even though you're trying to get to him, to my side, talk to them in a gentle manner. We're not fighting over here. We're not quarreling. We want to get him over here. The second thing that Allah says is, when you're talking to him, present your case with sound proofs. Don't talk sus. You see in the forums on the internet, when people start talking, oh, Abu Bakr is great, oh, Ali is great, and then the 2 people start quarreling. And this person talks nonsense, that person talks nonsense. He starts to abuse. There is no matter. It's just verbose talk which will lead nowhere. Allah says, don't talk that way. Talk with sound proofs. Talk with sound proofs when you go and talk. So that's why when Firaun asks, فَمَنْ رَبُّكُمَا يَا Musa? Who's your Lord? You are Harun's Lord. Musa says, Rabbi, Rabbuna alladhi khalaqna kulla shay, a'ta kulla shay'in khalqahu thumma hada. Lord is one who's created you, who's created me, and he's guided you throughout this entire life. And then he started giving proofs. Proofs of God, existence of God, presence of Akhirat, existence of Akhirat, all these proofs. God has said, when you're talking, talk with proofs. The third thing that God tells him is that when you talk and you want to invite, be very specific what you want. Be very clear. Don't beat around the bush. That's why when he goes, he says, what do you want, Musa? What do you want? He says, Arsil ma'ana bani Israel. I want you to believe in God. He has ordered you to leave Bani Israel. Leave them. Liberate them. You've been killing, yudabbihuna abnahum. You've been killing their children. Yastahyuna nisahum. You're retaining their women folk. You kill their males. You retain their women folk. This needs to stop. Wa arsil ma'ana bani Israel. Categorical. We want you to believe in Allah. We want you to send and liberate Bani Israel. I am the Aminullah. Send them with me. Liberate. And then after that, Allah says, you stop. When you end nice. Wassalamu ala man ittaba al-huda. Give salams. And he writes, in the Quran is there. Wassalamu ala man ittaba al-huda. Musa ends his discussion with Fir'aun saying, and salams be upon those individuals who follow the huda, hidayat. Understood? But there's another thing that Quran says in this entire mission of Musa to Fir'aun. He says, if you go and you pass the message and they reject it, or Fir'aun rejects it, understand then my consequences will be very shadid. My consequences will be very shadid. فَأَخَذْنَاهُ, and we took Fir'aun, وَجُنُودَهُ, and we took his army, فَنَبَذْنَاهُمْ فِي الْيَمِّ, we threw them into the fire, into the water. فَانْظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةَ الظَّالِمِينَ. See how the outcome of the Zalimin are. So you understood the entire mission, all the things that God says. God says, talk to them in a manner that is nice. Do not be lax in your discussion. Be very proactive. Third, give proofs. After giving proofs, ask them exactly what you want. Fourth, after having given you whatever you want, end it nicely. Wassalamu ala man ittaba al-huda. And then I will tell you what I will do when they reject. All this now was part of the mission of Hazrat Musa in inviting Fir'aun. Quran says exactly the same. Tradition says, يَكُونُ فِي هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ. In this ummah, exactly the same things will happen that took place with Nabi Musa. Picking up this invitation of Musa to Fir'aun, come to the invitation of Ayatollah Khomeini to Mikhail Gorbachev. The entire event started on January the 4th, 1989. On January the 4th, 1989, the letter was sent by Ayatollah Khomeini to Mikhail Gorbachev. This letter did not go through normal diplomatic channels. And I'm saying this because a lot of what I'm telling you was heard by me, by none other than the person who was nominated by Ayatollah Khomeini to take this letter. And all of us know what that letter was. Inviting Mikhail Gorbachev towards Islam, studying Islam, come to Islam. But we will discuss this. This entire letter was sent by a delegation headed by none other than, in today's time, inarguably, the greatest mufassir of the Islamic world, Ayatollah al-Uzma Shaykh Jawadi Amal. And this is something I have heard him say this with my own ears. And so I'm picking up those points and putting it before you. He says, I was part of the delegation that took this letter. Now look how it goes. He says, when we went there, remember what was the first thing that Allah said to Musa? Do not be lax. No lethargy in tabligh. No lethargy in inviting him towards Islam. Let it be proactive. Let it be vibrant. Normally, letters of this sort, when it's going from one leader to the other, follows diplomatic channels. It's passed on to the ambassador of this country. The ambassador passes on to the head of the state over there. It goes to the president reads it. Ayatollah Khomeini says, no diplomatic channels. La taneya fi dhikri. Do not be slack in passing my message. So what happened? Ayatollah Jawadi Amli says, we were told to take the letter by hand and read out the letter sentence by sentence. Every sentence in Persian translated into Russian by the translator, letter by letter, sentence by sentence. The entire letter was read out to Mikhail Gorbachev. When you hand something, it is taslim. Imam Khomeini said, no taslim, I want it ta'aleem. Talk to him, teach him. So Ayatollah Jawadi Amli says, we read out the entire process of reading out that entire text. I've got that text. I've read numerous times that letter written by Imam Khomeini. You need to read it as well. Read out by Ayatollah Jawadi Amli. He says it took me 1 hour. Every sentence recited by me, narrated and translated by the translator. He is listening. There were changes in his demeanor. Who? Gorbachev. Gorbachev at that time was the supreme leader of the Soviet Union, the only second superpower existing in that world after the United States. He says we talked it out. What was the first? Wala tanaya fi dhikri. No slackness, no diplomatic channels. You take proactive. Recite it out before him. Second, what the Quran says about the mission of Hazrat Musa. When you're talking, give proofs. Look at that letter. Look at that letter. Imam Khomeini talks about the existence of God. You understand, the Soviet Union was the harbinger, was the supporter, was the advocate, and was the safeguarding entity for communism. Communism had no place of God in their mind. Communism had no place for religion in their midst. Here in this letter, in giving proofs, read that letter. Allah is telling Mikhail Gorbachev, you need to realize there is God that exists. There is Akhirat that exists. And then he goes on to give proofs of the existence of God, proofs of Akhirat. He's giving strong evidence of what the Akhirat and God looks like, what religion is. The second point over there with Musa. Musa, when you talk, Rabbuna alladhi a'ta kulla shay'in khalqahu thumma hada, with proofs. In this letter, read it. If you want it, I've got the English translation. Listen to that, read it. You can also search it online. He talks about God. He talks about Akhirat. This is a leader of a country writing to the Soviet leader, the superpower, the successors of Khrushchev and the likes. What was the third thing that Allah says in the Quran about sending? He says, when you send, when you invite somebody, give exactly what you want. Over there, Musa says, Arsil ma'ana Bani Israel. Send to us the Bani Israel. Here, Imam Khomeini is writing. You understand what has happened here? This is just in the aftermath of the ceasefire between the 8-year war between Iraq and Iran. The entire world supporting Iraq against Iran. 8 years. 8 years of war. The United Nations intervened, brokered a ceasefire. A ceasefire has just been signed. People would think now somebody of this caliber needs a support. Either the NATO alliance or the Soviet bloc. Here he's writing to the Soviet bloc. But you know what Imam Khomeini is writing? Ayatollah Jawadi Amli says, after the ceasefire, Gorbachev thought Imam Khomeini was writing to him to seek help against the United States. They are against me. They are supporting Saddam. I want you to support me. You are a superpower. You can be an appropriate offset to the superpower strength of the US. I want you to come. This was what was there in the mind of Mikhail Gorbachev. But when it came out, this third point, Allah says to Musa, tell him clearly, Firaun, what you want. Arsil ma'ana Bani Israel. Leave Bani Israel and liberate them. Don't have control over them. Imam Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini writes to Mikhail Gorbachev. You know what he writes? Ajabana this is. This is called tawakkul upon Allah. This is called tawakkul on the power of God, nor east nor west, nor the superpowers of this material world. He says, Mr. Mikhail Gorbachev, and he writes it, Aghay Gorbachev, I'm inviting you towards Islam. I want you to study Islam. I'm requesting you, get outside this mindset of communism. Let your people follow religion. Let your people follow God. Don't crush their intensities towards God. Don't stop them from following religion, because your communism is not going to solve the And it says on the problems that you've got in the Soviet Union, your communism is not the answer. Your communism is going to end up in the annals of history. Read that letter, Babajan. This is writing to who? To Gorbachev, who is a superpower. He says, let the people, similarly to what Musa said, let the people free, they are the amanat of Allah. Here again he's saying, let the people follow religion. Don't come down upon religious practices. Don't stop them from following Allah, from following God and religion. And I request you, you study Islam, come to Islam. And I know, and this was the time when Mikhail Gorbachev was expanding the policy of glasnost and perestroika. At that time he said, I know you're inclined towards capitalism, but understand the capitalists have their own problems. They will not be able to solve the problem. The only problem that will be solved by Islam and God. And then he ends, you know how he ends? He ends, Ayatollah Jawadi Amli says, he ends with the same verse that was there in the Quran by Musa. وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَى مَنِ اتَّبَعَ. But it might not seem too much for you. So what if somebody ends with وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَى مَنِ اتَّبَعَ الْهُدَى? Ayatollah Jawadi Amli says, I have been with Imam Khomeini for decades. In the letters that he would write, he would never end his letter with the word وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَى مَنِ اتَّبَعَ الْهُدَى. He would always end his وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ. But this man following the Sirat of the Nabi, Sirat of the Anbiya, he knows the Anbiya, the Nabi that was given the task of calling Musa, ended with وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَى مَنِ اتَّبَعَ الْهُدَى. Me as a student of the follower of this Nabi also have to follow this. And then the final thing was what? The consequences. فَأَخَذْنَاهُ, and we took Fir'aun, وَجُنُودَهُ, and his army, فَمَنَبَذْنَاهُمْ فِي الْيَمِّ, we threw them into the water. فَانظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةَ الظَّالِمِينَ. See how the end of Dhalimin. What happens when this came? You know what was the response of Fir'aun, of Musa, of Mikhail Gorbachev? Over there he says, إِنَّ هَذَانِ لَسَاهِرَانِ يُرِيدَانِ أَن يُخْرِجَكُم مِّنْ أَرْضِكُم بِسِحْرِكُمَا وَيَذْهَبَا بِطَرِيقَتِكُمُ الْمُثْلَى. He says two things. In short, very short, I'm looking at the time. He says two things. He says, you delegation coming from Imam Khomeini, I'm taking offense to what you've said. He says, why are you taking offense? He says, for two reasons. He says, you, by means of this, are now trying to have, in today's terms, you are threatening the national security of the Soviet Union. And second, this is interference in our national interests. They're the same thing Musa said. Fir'aun says, when Musa says, believe in Allah, Fir'aun is saying, you are interfering in my internal affairs of my country. You are threatening to take my people out. This is national security interest. Exactly the same thing Mikhail Gorbachev says. By asking me to come to Islam and relieving the people to follow the religion, you are interfering in my religious internal affairs. And you are threatening the national security. Ayatollah Jawadi Amli had to tell him, we are not transgressing your borders, your land borders. We are not transgressing your territorial waters. We are not transgressing your airspace. Nor are we stealing your natural resources. All that we're telling is think and come. Exactly the same thing that was done there is being done there. And the conclusion is also the same. Over there, God says, we picked up Fir'aun, we picked up his army, put him into the water. Finished. فَانظُرْ كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الظَّالِمِينَ. See how the end of Dhalimin are. Over here, see what happens. Soviet Union, the superpower. Look at the timeline very quickly and then Masahib 5 minutes. I don't need to give too much Masahib. Maulana Sahib, mashallah, recited so well. You can compensate my lack of Masahib with your mouth. In January, the 4th of January, 1989, the letter goes, your communism, if you don't come to Islam, is going to find itself in the annals of history. 4th of January, 1989. 3rd of June, 1989, 5 months later, Imam Khomeini passes away. Now, Khomeini is not there, but his words were there. Now look at the timeline. 4th of January, 1989, the letter goes to Mikhail Gorbachev, accept Islam. He rejects it. In March of 1990, that means 1 year and 2 months down the line, the first of the 15 Soviet republics declares independence, Lithuania. Lithuania says, we are no longer part of the Soviet Union. January 1989, letter goes. March of 1990, the first country to split from the Soviet Union, followed by Estonia.
followed by Latvia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, XYZ. Everyone started to move out of the control of the communism of the Soviet Union till comes 6th of December 1991. 3 years from the time the letter goes to Mikhail Gorbachev. January 1989, the whole of January, the whole of 1989, the whole of 90, the whole of 1991, 6th of December 1991, the Supreme Soviet of the USSR sits together and dissolve itself. The Soviet Union breaks down. Remaining into the annals of history, that was what was prophesied by Imam Khomeini. The same way that Musa had told Fir'aun, you don't listen to this advice of mine, your power is not going to remain. Mikhail Gorbachev was told by Ayatollah Khomeini, you don't listen to the call of God, your Soviet Union is going to crumble and remain into the annals of history. Today, where does Soviet Union go? Look at what is happening to Russia, which is a semblance of the power of that superpower Soviet Union. This is how the marja'iyat works. Now you tell me, you got somebody like this marja in the West, who's able to follow so uncannily, step by step of a Nabi as guided by Allah. Tell me, you've got an individual of this divinity. Tell me you've got an individual of this zuhud. Tell me you've got an individual of this taqwa and ilm, and then we talk about the marja in the East, in the West. But this is again what was related to the Holy Prophet. He wanted people over here to follow the successor that he had placed. Ali was bypassed. And that was one of the ghama. We cry over the mazlumiyat of the Ahlul Bayt. This mazlumiyat of the Holy Prophet. You heard about the Messiah. I want to take it just a little forward to understand what this Messiah was. At times a person is hurt by this dhulm meted out to the people that he loves. The Holy Prophet now is on his deathbed. He's on his deathbed. People are expecting him to go. Who's next to him? Ali is there. Fatima is there. Riwayat says at that point of time the door opens and a young boy comes running. Who? Hussein ibn Ali. Now Hussein always had a habit. Whenever the Prophet would be lying down, he would jump onto the chest of the Holy Prophet. Hussein comes running, sees the Holy Prophet. Hussein is young. Hussein is very small. He comes running, comes onto the bed, comes onto the chest of the Holy Prophet, puts his head onto the chest of the Holy Prophet. But let me tell you one thing about the Holy Prophet and Hussein, yeah? From the very beginning, Hussein has always evoked a dual response from the Holy Prophet. Always. It was a mixture of emotions simultaneous. Emotion of love and happiness, emotion of grief and sadness. There was always this dual. So whenever Hussein would be seen by the Prophet, he would be overcome by these two emotions. Happiness to see his son Hussein, and sadness to know what was going to happen to Hussein. And Salman says, I've never seen the Holy Prophet cast his eyes on Hussein except that tears would come into his eyes. Never has Salman is saying this. Minna Ahlul Bayt is saying this. He says even at the time when the Holy Prophet was really ecstatic, was really happy, was really good in comfort, whenever he would see Hussein, he would get happy and his eyes would swell up with tears. Because Hussein is Hussein ibn Ali. Here Hussein comes and sits onto the chest of the Holy Prophet. Ali wants to take him away. The Prophet says, Ali, don't take him away. Hussein is not a burden to me. Hussein is a means of rahat for me. Let him remain on my chest. One day the Holy Prophet, last 2 minutes and then we finish. Holy Prophet is on the mimbar. He is giving khutbah. He is giving khutbah. Masjid al-Nabi packed. Listening to the khutbah. All of a sudden people see. The Prophet has turned his head towards the door of the masjid. Turning towards the door of the masjid, the Holy Prophet stops the khutbah. Holy Prophet stops the khutbah. People look towards the door to see what has caused the Holy Prophet to stop his khutbah. What do they see? They see the door is open and Hussein ibn Ali is standing near the door. The Prophet has stopped his khutbah, Riwayat tell us, he looked at Hussein alayhi salam, a smile on his face, tears in his eyes. He spreads out his hand in the middle of the khutbah, spreads out his hand. As soon as Hussein sees my Nana has opened his arms, he wants me, he starts running. Rawat say, small little boy, small little legs, small little steps. This legs of his gets caught in the carpet of the mosque and Hussein falls down. As soon as Hussein falls down, the Holy Prophet holds for a second, rushes down from the mimbar, passes through the people, reaches Hussein. My son Hussein, my son Hussein, I hope you are okay. I hope you did not get hurt. I hope you are okay. Your Nana has come. Don't worry. Are people might say, Are why do you go down? Why did you bend to pick Hussein? Shayad the Holy Prophet would say, if you had a Quran in your hand and if the Quran had fallen down, would you not bend down to pick up the Quran? People understand. Hussein is Quran and Atiq. The Quran had fallen down. I had no option except to pick him up. But there's one more thing that comes here. When you see the Holy Prophet bending down, picking up Hussein, kissing him, this is reminding us of an incident that took place in 61 Hijri in Karbala. Abbas is gone to get the water. All of a sudden the alam falls down. Hussein hears, Wa alayka salam ya Sayyidi. My last salams, oh my master. Hussein gets up. Ravi says, I saw Hussein running, but all of a sudden Hussein stops. He bends down. He picks up something, puts it on his head, kisses it forward, now moves forward, bends down again, picks up something else, puts it on his head, kisses it, moves forward. Ravi says, I thought probably this is some pieces of paper of Quran that on the way Hussein is seeing, he's picking it up. I said, I want to see what this thing is. I go closer, but what I'm seeing in Hussein's arms, there is no Quran. In Hussein's hands, there is no Quran. The two cut arms of Abbas. These were the arms with which Abbas would give me water. These were the arms that would always be spread out before me. These were the arms in whose favor Abbas never called me brother. He would always call me Sayyidi, Ana Ghulamuk. I am your servant. My arms are waiting for service to you. His arms now remain cut.
وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون